Yep, 2,500 programmes. He is absolutely amazed. And so will you be when you see the show, because it's going to be brilliant.
Pussycats, where have you been? Hello, yes, they're back. If you've missed karaoke recently, you can find out where they've been later on. Also coming up, why a lot of Americans came to Britain 50 years ago and changed things forever. And Yvette's been trying to crack the postcode. But before all that, entries to the Blue Peter Expo 92 competition have been arriving, and lots of very interesting ones as well, which we've enjoyed looking at.
We have had loads of entries, very, very colourful too. My favourite has to be this one, and it's all about the sea. A couple of bright fish down here at the bottom. And what's the best thing about this design is that it actually moves. If you look at this deep sea dive, you may not think there's anything special, but look at that. It moves. So if it's actually to be used on a display, you could make it life-size and move round. Glug, 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 glug.
This design has incorporated the future and a bit of discovery as well. Possible places to live in the future. How about the seabed or on the moon? Maybe in the air with some planets on top of clouds. If you like some hot weather, how about Mars? Cold weather, the North Pole. Or if you like it dark, underground. And an expo design in the middle there too. Another design which was very colourful, lots of very imaginative ideas in here. How about a new spacesuit for the future for us all to wear, or maybe swimming in a very clear blue sea with the dolphins. You could even maybe go to holidays on Saturn, and that's what the Earth maybe look like in the future. And of course there will be tropical flowers in the future for everyone, we hope.
So keep the entries coming, and remember, we want something showing discovery, our future and planet Earth. But it's not a poster competition. The winning design will be turned into a life-size exhibit by a professional model maker. Use only one sheet of paper, around about this size, and on the back put this information. You need to put your name, age and address on the back of your entry and send it to Blue Peter Expo, PO Box 20, BBC Television, London W12 6BP. That's Blue Peter Expo, PO Box 20, BBC TV, London W12 6BP. There's still plenty of time to enter, and the closing date is Friday, January the 31st, so you can get cracking this week.
Well, what did you think of the gear, huh? Fairly fashionable, quite trendy. Well, I don't think I'd feel out of place in this lot, walking or even driving down the King's Road, well, apart from the hat. Actually, these clothes are 50 years old, and there were lots of people wearing them, but not because they were the height of fashion. American uniforms appeared on the streets of Britain exactly 50 years ago this month. The Americans were all called GIs. GI stood for General Issue or Government Issue. That's what was said on all of their equipment. The first of what was to become a tidal wave of American troops arrived in Britain on January the 26th, 1942. They came to help Britain fight in the war against Germany. Between 1942 and the end of the war 3 years later, about 2 million Americans came to Britain. Those very first GIs were greeted American style, or what we thought passed in those days, by bands and girls from the Red Cross offering them coffee and donuts. Very American. The Americans came from a land of plenty and arrived in a country battered by 2 years of war, bombing, food shortages and defeat. The GIs were warned that conditions were worse than anything they could imagine. They were told, the British diets are poor, their houses are cold, the young men are gone, and you'll see a lot of old people and children. The people have endured horrible bombings. They were also told about some of the quaint British customs they could expect to find.
We drive on the right side of the road, but in Britain, we go for baseball. They have a little number called cricket.
Very well played, sir.
For many people in Britain, this was the first time they'd ever met real live Americans. What they knew about Yanks, as they called them, came from films, and many people thought all Americans were either gangsters or cowboys. But things should have been all right. They did speak the same language, didn't they?
So I went in to sup my dinner, but it's that bucket and I was getting parched. Lad, that's bad.
Knowing Tchaikovsky's smaller pianoforte works are best.
Are they kidding, Jack?
The accent not only spoke with strange accents, they looked different too. They dressed casually, chewed gum, and seemed very relaxed, even though they'd come here to fight a war. They brought new things never seen before in Britain, and new sounds too, so that everyone would get on. Dances were organised for the American GIs and British girls. Not sure what the British men thought about that though. In the 1940s, the hit music of the day was the big band sound, which everybody wanted to dance to. One of the most famous band leaders ever was Glenn Miller. When America entered the Second World War, Captain Glenn Miller was given the job of forming a new band from the Army Air Force. The band would travel to wherever American servicemen were stationed to give special concerts. In 1944, the new Glenn Miller Band came to Britain for a tour. It was sold out many times over.
During the war years, just about everything in Britain was in short supply. Petrol, coal, soap, clothes, and of course, food. Everybody had one of these, a ration book. And if you look inside, there are lots of different foods like butter. And when you went to get the food, you would just have it stamped. Cheese, sugar, and there's tea. This food here would last you a week. There's not much, is it? There's a tiny amount of meat, 2 lamb chops, 4 rashers of bacon, a little piece of cheese, about 2 ounces of butter, 1 egg, and I wonder how many cups of tea you'd get out of this lot. There were no oranges or bananas, but there were plenty of vegetables.
The GIs, meanwhile, had more than 1/3 of their food shipped over from America, where there was no rationing. Food like ham, luncheon meat, peanut butter, tea, coffee, sugar, tomato ketchup, and tinned fruit.
Had it that the British Yanks, they had a really bad time. They had to live a month on the leftovers from the American restaurants.
The GIs had regular supplies of those luxury goodies as well that you couldn't find anywhere in Britain, like stockings. British women used to stain their legs with gravy browning and draw pretend seams up the backs of their legs.
Hi, doll. You want some nylons?
What are nylons?
Stockings, gal. Stockings.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Well, how about a Hershey bar?
What's that?
Chocolate, dummy, chocolate.
Oh, yes, thank you. Lovely. Excuse me,
Yeah?
do you have any gum?
Yeah, sure. Have some.
Oh, thank you.
How you doing? You all right, are you?
Yeah.
Good stuff. The GIs were better paid and better dressed than the soldiers in the British Army, and they also believed in having a good time. The GIs also made a special effort to entertain British children. Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, any occasion was a good excuse for a children's party, where there would be decorations, games to play, and lots of wonderful food to eat, like jelly, donuts, blancmange, and cakes. Food that children could usually only dream of during wartime, and that many of them had never seen.
Many of the children who came to the parties had a father away fighting in the war. Some were orphans, and a special orphan fund was set up so GI units could adopt orphans for a year. Children like Sweet Pea would be bought clothes and presents and taken out for day trips by their adopted GIs. Later this year, many GIs will be returning to Britain to revisit the places they stayed in during the war. It's going to be a very busy time for reunions and celebrations, and perhaps people with unfamiliar American accents will be visiting your town who were last there 50 years ago. The Imperial War Museum in London is also marking the occasion with a special GI exhibition which opens on Thursday.
In America, they call them zip codes, but in Britain, we call them postcodes, but they both do the same job. Have you ever noticed the mysterious bluish dots that appear on some envelopes? They actually represent the postcode written in the address. Ace reporter Yvette Fielding has been out to crack that code.
I'm here in Cowes on the Isle of Wight with Emma Gallagher, who at this very moment is working on her entry for the Blue Peter Expo 92 competition. No peeking. Emma, how's it going?
It's going fine, and it's all ready to be popped into the envelope.
I'll leave you to it.
Wait, oh yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait, hey, Mr. Postman.
Envelope successfully stamped and addressed, and now it's over to the Royal Mail, who will get Emma's entry all the way to the Blue Peter competition office. It's a tense moment, Emma. How do you feel at this crucial point?
Well, I'm taking each posting as it comes of it. So, here goes.
The next stage is to get Emma's letter all the way over to the main sorting office for this area. And that's over there on the mainland at Portsmouth. And I'm going with it. With Emma's letter safely on board, this hovercraft zooms them over to Portsmouth as quickly as possible. Letter is still on course. Now it has to be sorted so it ends up in the right place with the other entries from all over the country. Now I better get on because I have to send it upstairs to the big sorting office. Each day over 60 million letters are posted all over Britain. Having a postcode on them helps them get sorted and arrive sooner. A lot faster than the old days when every single letter had to be sorted by hand. Every postcode in the country is stored on a central computer. So if I tapped in the Blue Peter postcode, which is W12 6BP, press the enter button and the information should come up. Yep, there it is, Blue Peter. When the letters come out of their sacks, they're then hand sorted into first and second class. When that's happened, they then come into the machine area, and over here is where each letter gets their postmark. And here's Emma's, complete with postmark. This is a very clever machine. It's called an OCR, which stands for Optical Character Recognition Machine. And what it does is it actually reads postcodes on letters. 15,000 letters fly through the OCR in an hour. As the lights flash, a camera reads the postcode far quicker than the human eye. Once the OCR has read the postcode, the central computer tells it where to sort the letter. Aha! Here is Emma's letter. Unfortunately, this machine only reads typed addresses, so Emma's letter is in the reject pile. Handwritten letters have to have their postcodes read by the good old human being, and in this case, it's Lorraine. Have you seen Emma's letter yet, Lorraine? No, not yet. Once the postcode's typed in, the computer can mark them to be sorted into the right destination. And here is Emma's letter, which has been sorted into the BBC pile. And these dots at the bottom, they stand for the postcode. So I'll put Emma's letter into the bag, along with the rest of the BBC mail. Well, here we are, back in the loading bay. Now, all Emma's letter has to do now is get to London to join all the other entries in the Blue Peter competition office. And this lorry is going to take it there. Have a good journey! Well, this is the BBC's local London sorting office, and Emma's letter has just come out of the sack with all the other Blue Peter Expo competition entries, and all I have to do now is just pop them into the Blue Peter boxes here so that they end up in the competition office. Here we are in the heart of the BBC. I'm now approaching the final stage. Yes, it's the Blue Peter competition office. And even as I speak, our highly skilled personnel are hard at work checking through the Expo entries. Right, we've got some extra help today. Emma's here. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
Do you think you can help me with this great big sack on my back? There it is. Wow, all this stuff. I wonder where your letter is.
Here it is.
Ah. So all the way from the Isle of Wight to Television Centre.
So now you know that's the tidiest I've seen the office for a long time. We've also nearly reached our destination too. Today, the total on the Golden Age appeal totalizer is flashing at the 12.5 million mark. And the actual number of cans we've received so far is 12,763,660, which is great news. And it means only one more stage to go on the totalizer before we reach a target of 15 million cans. So come on, if everyone makes an extra effort in the next few days, we should reach our target very soon. So please keep collecting aluminium drinks cans and take them to Safeway, Tesco, William Lowe, Stewart's and Crazy Prices or any Help the Aged shop.
You get a great view from up here, but tower blocks like these can be pretty frightening places to live if you're old and you live alone. We want to provide lifeline alarms to help protect old people at risk. As you saw at the beginning of the programme, the Blue Peter kittens, Carrie and Oki, are back with us, having been away for a couple of weeks. They weren't away on holiday, but resting after a special operation. Bradley Viner's the kitten's vet. OK, Bradley, what operation have they just had?
They've been neutered. That means that Oki's had an operation to make sure he can't be a dad, and Carrie can't have kittens now.
What is neutering for exactly? I mean, isn't it important to do that?
It is very important, yes. I mean, these two came from Wood Green Animal Shelters. They were unwanted kittens. And, well, they've certainly landed on their feet, but we don't want others to go the same way. The RSPCA tell us that last year they put down 92,000 unwanted animals, and out of those, 32,000 were unwanted cats that had to be put to sleep.
That is a high number, but isn't it true that female cats have to have at least one litter?
No, that's an old wives' tale, I'm afraid, they die. They don't need it. There's no reason from a health point of view why they should. In fact, it's a smaller operation before they've started having a season, and what they don't know, they don't miss. If you think about it very carefully, if you're sure you can give them good homes, then fine. Breed from a cat, it's a nice experience, but it's not something to be done lightly.
Does the operation hurt them a bit?
No, it didn't hurt them at all. They went home the same day, and they were really, by that evening, as bright as ever. Of course, they have a general anaesthetic for it.
It does affect their personality, though, doesn't it? Changes it a bit.
Well, that's quite important for old Oki here, because actually entire toms don't make very good pets. They wander off for days at a time, they get into fights with other male cats, and also they have very, very strong-smelling urine, so they're a bit unpleasant to have around the house sometimes.
Well, they've had their operation. Is that all they need to do for now?
Well, we've got to take out Carrie's stitches. So,
right,
John, would you mind holding on to Oki?
Help is at hand.
Jolly good, veterinary nurse extraordinaire.
I'm amazed
so
at how big the
wait, hold on.
Just,
what shall I do? Just
gently hold it towards you.
Oh,
Put your lower hand just down there. She's only got one stitch there.
Brave, I know you are.
There we are. It's out.
Oh, that was simple. You didn't notice that, did you? Well, I think they've been very well behaved. Good little things. Thanks very much, Bradley.
It's been my pleasure.
And you've been a really good little cat, haven't you?
There's a feature all about animal neutering in the brand new edition of the Blue Peter Green Book, which is out today. It's on the page Turning Your Pet Green. And we had Willow neutered because stopping stray and unwanted cats does help the environment, and so does cleaning up after your dog. This new Green Book is a paperback version of our best-selling hardback. Many of the pages in the book have been updated with new information, and it's nice that it's new out today because this is a very special day for Blue Peter.
Is the 2,500th Blue Peter. Yeah, we think Blue Peter is the longest running children's programme anywhere in the world. It all began on October the 16th, 1958, with just one programme a week, and became 2 programmes a week in 1965. And 2,500 programmes later, here we are.
And in all that time, there have been 18 presenters, 17 pets, 29 appeals,
26 summer expeditions, 48 Blue Peter books, and 47 drawing competitions.
Well, we couldn't tell you how many letters we've had over the years, but we do get several thousands each week. And we've awarded hundreds of thousands of Blue Peter badges.
To give you a comparison, there have been 260 Jim will Fix It programmes, 227 generation games, 321 editions of A Question of Sport, 1,110 Tomorrow Worlds, 1,966 grandstands, but surprisingly, there have been 4,100 Jackanories, so I don't think we'll quite catch up with them.
I wonder how many of those 18 presenters you or your parents or even your grandparents remember. Here's a reminder. In the beginning, there was Chris and Layla Williams. Layla didn't stay long.
Then there was Chris and Valerie. They were joined by John, a different John. He came along when the programme went from once to twice a week.
Then Val and John were joined by Peter. They stayed together for a while, and here they are a few years later. Then along came Leslie. That made Leslie, John, Val and Pete.
When Val left, John, Leslie and Pete carried on. And we've reached 1979 now, and a bit of a changeover. Leslie's still there, joined by Chris and Simon. Then there was Simon, Tina and Chris.
Quickly followed by Simon, Sarah and Peter. That's another Peter. Sarah then left and the team was joined by Simon, and Peter and Janet. When Peter left, there was Simon, Janet and Michael.
Then Janet was joined by Peter, who'd come back by this stage, and Mark. Then there was Karen, Mark and Janet, and it's beginning to look a little bit familiar now, isn't it?
Yep, and here's me. I joined Mark and Karen.
And then I came along to join Karen and Yvette.
Oh, don't you look young, which only leaves me. And that brings us completely up to date.
Yep, we shall be back on Thursday for the 2,501st Blue Peter with an adventure story from the stormiest seas in the world.
And the results of the long-awaited Doctor Who competition. Don't miss that.
To end, a lightning look back at the first 2,500 Blue Peters, get my teeth in. Here's to the next 2,500. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Stand by your sets. We'll show you this only once.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What to do now? Now. Put it on the floor and take the meeting now.
That's a bit dirty.
Come on, come on, come on, come on.
I should go that way. I should leave it here and have a great time.